welcome back to your Next Gen Friend. Today I want to talk about a framework that we call the Metamorphosis of business transition. So there's actually 6 different categories that we see: a successor going through a transition, but also the current owner. In some cases, that's your parents or the person who's leading the business now. The transition and the metamorphosis, the change that they're going to go through as they start to step out of the business. So we call these the metamorphoses. There's the role, vision, power, relationships, purpose, and legacy. So I thought we could just jump in and quickly talk about each one. So the first one is the role. So as the successor, you're really an apprentice. I feel like an apprentice right now. I'm essentially in a full-time role, but I'm also starting to take on a lot of additional responsibilities. So my learning curve is very steep. Elizabeth says things like, hey, let's go into XYZ on the finances, and let's talk about this thing. Do you want to learn about client delivery? Hey, we should talk about the cash flow and the leadership team and managing team members and business development. It's a list of things time after time that I have to kind of think about. So I'm anxious and excited to prove myself, but I also lack decision-making authority. I still need to rely on Elizabeth for big decisions. It's not my decision to make. I can make a good suggestion, but that. So when you think about transitioning into the business owner role, so this is where a lot of us successors are going, we're moving to a place where eventually, it is all on us. We're the star. But when you think of the person who's the current business owner now, they kind of have this just supernatural ability to do their job incredibly well. For first generation founders, they've taken the business from nothing all the way to what it is today. If it's second or third generation, they just have more years, more time doing this. And so for that owner to move beyond to what's next, they're stepping back. The type of thing that they're going to be dealing with and thinking about a lot is, how do they stay relevant? What's their life purpose? How do they have kind of they want to have the safety net, but they don't want to stifle your growth, but they also don't want to risk, especially if they're still taking money out or they rely on you for payments. They're looking to make sure that they're still relevant inside the business. So that's the first one. That's the role. The second thing is the vision. So when you think about the vision, I think a lot of times as successors, we have new ideas or we've seen things. Maybe we went to work somewhere else and then we came back into the business and it's like, hey, I have this new idea. I have this new thing we should try. How do we do it? And sometimes it splits from what the business has done before that was really successful, and there can be some tension there. When you think of the current owner, there's a lot of things that they probably want to get done before they officially move out. But they're also trying to create that space for new ideas to come in because they know there needs to be growth. They know that the business is going to go to you. And that is like a really hard tension spot to be sitting. As the owner moves out, really they shift from control of being the business visionary to, if it's a family business, it can be more of a family visionary type role. They're thinking more about the multi-generational vision. But also just how their own influence is. And sometimes that's diminishing influence. And there can be some real anxiety and feelings that owners have about making sure that they're still relevant and they're still leaving an impact while also leaving space inside the business. The next one is power. So when you think about power, really as a successor, you don't have decision-making authority. We kind of talked about that a little bit in roles. You don't want to overstep, but you also don't want to overperform. And it's this dance back and forth all the time. I want to prove myself, but also I need to leave a little bit of space. I want to respect the hierarchy, and that can make you feel really uncertain, and that's really tricky. When you think of the owner, they really have a final say on anything. And if you're not a majority owner as a successor, that can feel really crushing. But also when you're the person that has to make a decision on everything, that can feel super isolating. So it's taken years for them to get to this point where they are the person, they are kind of in control of everything, and starting to share decisions with you can make it feel like they're losing control of their work. I think Elizabeth and I are talking about this a lot right now. she talks like it's a really hard feeling to start to let go. How do I start to let go? How do I step out? How do I give you space? But also, how do I make sure she wants to make sure she's giving me all the authority, all the wisdom, all the things that she's learned over time to make sure that we're moving forward in a mindful way. So she's resisting the urge to control decisions that I'm making. She's watching me make mistakes. It's so important for me to pay my dues and make those mistakes. But also, I want to make sure that I'm using the wisdom that she's sharing with me in a right way. So there's definitely an interesting dance here when you think about power dynamics in a transition. The next one to talk about is relationships. This is a lot about relationships inside of the business. When you think of business development, building a network, there's a lot of your own network that you need to build. You're not your parents' generation, or you're not the current owner's generation. I look at Elizabeth. She has all these connections, all these people that she knows. They're also essentially aging out of the system at the same way. So I need to make new connections and new network and start to figure out what that looks like. So I'm constantly trying to look at what that could look like. But in some situations, it might feel like, well, I don't have access to that key supplier, or I don't have access to that relationship because the current generation is really holding that tight because that's important to them. And for the owner, it's because everyone is depending on what they want. But also it can be really exhausting, always having to be the focal point or the main person that everyone needs everything for. So as the owner starts to move beyond, they're pulling back and becoming less relevant, and they start to have to build relationships outside of the business, which is really tricky. Again, it's another shift when your whole life has sort of oriented around the business for 15, 20, 30 years. It can be a big shift for them. I want to take a minute to talk about purpose. So when we think about purpose, that's the next one of the 6. Really for a successor, until you are the owner of that business, it's almost just like a job. You have lots of life priorities. There's your business job, there's your family job, there's things that you do outside of the business. Your attention is probably between a lot of different things. I feel this for sure. My attention is between a lot of different things. When I became an owner, the day I became an owner, there was like something that clicked in my mind and I was like, oh, now I'm an owner. I have responsibility to this thing. And so I have more purpose now inside of the business as an official owner. When you think of someone who is an owner, the identity a lot of times is entirely wrapped up inside the business, and it can start to feel like a trap. And for people who have been working in their business for so long, we talk about next adventures. What are they going to be doing? What does it look like? What have they been building all of this for? As an owner starts to move towards getting out of the business, it can feel liberating and it can feel exciting, but also they're losing a primary identity that they've had for a long time. This is one of the hardest things that we help business owners with in transition, is helping them be happy for everyone else, but also helping them feel really fulfilled for themselves, because they need to know what they're doing. They need to know where they're going, or there's no path for them out of the business. They stay and they're in your space. They're doing things near you, and it can feel stifling to you, but it also feels hard for them to let go. Which kind of ties into the idea of legacy, the last metamorphosis. Especially in a family, you can feel pressure to honor the family history, but also you need to evolve it. You need to make it authentic for you. It needs to feel something that you're excited to come work on every day. There can be anxiety about destroying something or changing something that people have done before you, but also it can feel super depressing and hard if you don't see a path forward. And you're like, I feel like I need to do this business, but I don't really know that it's for me. I don't see where I have a place in it. I don't see where my skill set fits in. When you think of the owner, they're getting ready to entrust that to other people. So something that they've worked on, systems they put in place, the process of letting go so that someone can come in and make it their own is really hard. A lot of times for some people, it can feel unbearable. And so it's a balance for them between giving you the space and also letting go and truly just kind of releasing that. So their greatest achievement could survive. It also could change. It also could be bigger. It could be better. And that's why we really believe in designing the future of transition with other people. So there you have it, the 6 metamorphoses of a business transition. I think the takeaway as a successor is really you're going through such a big change. And just like give yourself some space to process that and think about that. Let me know what resonates for you. But also just remember the business owner, your parents, they're going through a big change too as they let you step into leadership, as they start to take things away. Different people need to go at different paces. Different conversations need to be had at different points in time. The most important thing is you start having conversations with them about what the future looks like, what you want, what's important to them, what everyone needs, because the sooner you do that, the sooner you can get start to move to the same page and design what the future looks like together. So that's my invitation for you today. If you're not sure what the future looks like or how to start a conversation, please reach out, DM me on Instagram. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you and your family. All right, that's it. Have a great week, everyone.